Welcome to the Board Game Network Man Cave. We're going to be talking about the rules to Codenames today. And it was designed by Vlada Zivtil or something. Czech Games Edition is the company that put it out. It is currently the number one party game on Board Game Geek, the highest rated party game. It also was just nominated for an award. But anyway, I'm going to be talking about the rules and how you play this. Every time I've taught somebody, this is just like a 15-minute game. Every time I've taught somebody how to play this, or a group of people how to play this, they immediately want to just continue to play it again and again and again. And we usually play it 4 or 5 times. It plays 4 to 8 players, and it says 14 years and up. I'd say you could play younger than that, but that's what it says on the box. And it's 2 teams. So no matter how many players you have, you just break up into 2 teams. You have 2 spy masters. So 2 spy masters sit on one side of the table and everybody else sits on the other side of the table. And so the spy masters are giving clues to their team, and their team tries to get the right answer. And then it alternates back and forth between the 2 spy masters. The spy masters know who all the agents are, but the agents don't know who the agents are. So you're giving clues to your agents, your team, and they try to pick out on this dealt out cards who are their agents. And you just deal out 5 rows, 5 columns. You got 25 cards out here, and you just mix those up and randomly deal them out. You've got words on both sides. So when you're done, you can just flip those cards over and play again. You have these cards here, which these are the key cards. And they show which team's cards are which team. So there's a red team and a blue team. And so in the case of this card, this top row here would be this top row here. And you could orient these things anyway. So, I mean, you mix them up and you pick them up, and they could be, doesn't matter which way you pick them up, but just keep it oriented right. And then you stick it in this little plastic thing so it stands up, and then both spy masters can see this card to see whose agents are whose. So this top row is this top row. So this would be an innocent bystander. This would be blue, innocent bystander, blue, and then red, red, blue, red. So that's how this works. And there is also a black spot on there. That's the assassin. That would be this card using this keymaster card, or the key card, but that assassin moves around on each card. You'll also notice that there's a color on the side, either a red or a blue here, and that tells you who plays first. And the reason for that is because whoever plays first has to detect 9 agents, and whoever plays second only has 8. So the person going first has to get 1 more card than the other player. So that tells you who's going first. And when you give clues to your team, all you do is you give a word and then a number. So you are trying to get people to pick out from these clues who the agents are based on the clues you're giving them. So there's a whole bunch of little variations. It says in the booklet, different people like to play differently, so you may have different basic standards. So I would suggest you just go to the rule book to look at the different suggestions. But anyway, you can't say any of the words that are on there, obviously, or use any part of the words. And it needs to have something to do with the meaning of the word, not the spelling or something, not the 3rd letter of the alphabet or something. And you're giving a word that applies to as many cards as you can get it to apply to that are your agents. And you definitely don't want it to even be anywhere near to suggesting the spy. And so when you give your clues to your team, they discuss it, and then they decide which cards to pick that they think relate to your clue. And nothing is set until they touch the card. They come over here and they touch a card, and then it's been picked. And then you put down on here, you put either a cover it with if it's a blue or a red or the spy or the innocent bystander. So in this case, that one would be, with it being tan, would be an innocent bystander. Now the way that they do the 9 or the 8 is one of these is red on one side and blue on the other. So whoever's going first gets this card also, along with their regular cards. So whenever you give the clue, when they're discussing it, you cannot make facial expressions. They can't try to get clues from the spy master. It's better if they don't even look at each other. Kind of look, spy master look down or look off. Don't give any kind of reaction when they say, well, I think it's this word, or I think it's that word. And they can guess as many times, they have to guess at least once, and they can guess as many times as the number that you gave them plus 1. So if you said, I don't know, car 4, then they could actually make 5 guesses. But what you're telling them is you're telling them that you have 4 cards on here that relate to 4 cards that relate to the word car. And I don't know, I didn't really randomly pick these cards. I kind of picked out some that relate to each other just to make it easy for you to see. So I would say, like, there are 10 cards on this board that I see that relate to the word detective. And so if I said detective and then I said 10, which I doubt that I would have 10, and especially there wouldn't be 10 that are related to me, but you might say detective 3 or something. And then your team discusses it and points to police. And then, okay, if that's your team card, then you cover it. And then they keep going. As long as they get it right. If they ever get it wrong, if they ever pick out the opponent's card, then you cover it. So you actually give the card to the other team, and then your turn's over. Or if it's an innocent bystander, you also lose the rest of the turn. So the turn's over. But that doesn't really hurt you, it just causes your turn to be over. And what's this timer for? This timer really is only in there if somebody's taking too long. Somebody has the right to turn that over and say, okay, hurry up with your clue. You have to be done by the time the sand's out. Usually that is not an issue. You can ask somebody to spell a word, or as the spy master, you can choose to spell the word that you're giving the clue on in addition to saying it or instead of saying it. There are a lot of homonyms and stuff like that in English, so you can choose to kind of have a double meaning of something by saying it but not spelling it, or maybe spelling it but not saying it, because there's words that are spelled the same way that are pronounced differently. So you can kind of do that kind of game playing there. So if I said detective, and there's actually 10 cards here that I think apply to detective, I could say, here's police, here is yard, meaning like Scotland Yard. So any of these that you think apply, even if it's a stretch, and it gets very challenging to come up with, especially when you get close to the end, come up with clues that apply to multiple cards. But if you think and think and think, there's a lot of times you interpret a word as being a noun, but it also could be a verb, and that helps if you kick it around in your head and try to come up with different uses of the word. Another clue might be body, and like here we have an eye here, and what other one? Oh, pupil, like in your eye, that's a body part. And it has to be a single word. It can't be a double word, it can't be a hyphenated word, it has to be a single word. So that's the way you play this game. There are some expert clues you can give. You can say 0 for your number, and what that does is you're telling your teammates that the clue you're giving, it does not apply. So any of the cards you pick don't are not applied to this clue. So if you said car 0, then they would know to not pick things related to the car. And when you go back and forth, there will be clues that you've given that they didn't get all of the cards on. So they are welcome to come back later with the next clue if they don't know the answer, or they're debating the answer, or they're picking, you said 3 and they found 2 but they couldn't think of the third one. They can still pick just randomly or pick off of a clue that you've given previously in a previous turn. Another kind of expert clue is the number unlimited, and that just tells them that, especially if you've gotten several clues and they've missed several, or you are almost to lose the game and you need to get several cards to win it. Maybe the other team only has 1 card left or 2 cards left, and so you're giving them the ability to pick as many as they can pick. But the disadvantage of that is your team doesn't know how many applies to the clue that you're giving. And there also is a 2 and 3 player variant in the rule book in case you want to play with 2 players or 3 players. So that's how you play this game. 15 minutes is all it takes to play this game. And it's a very fun game and very quick and very easy to learn. So make sure you tune in to all of our rules for Board Game Network on YouTube.